My grandma Ada looked my mum squarely in the eye, and she pounded on the kitchen counter as she demanded, I like it, I want it, and I'm going to have it. It wasn't a 5-year-old temper tantrum. It was someone that was crystal clear on what they wanted, and it was someone who was unstoppable. In this week's episode of Weekly Momentum, we're going to explore what makes the difference between those moments when we are determined and therefore become unstoppable, and wishy-washy and more prone to distractions and procrastination and overwhelm. So tune in to this week's episode of Weekly Momentum to find out more about determination and unstoppableness, and some more stories about my grandma Ada. We still joke about it to this day, and that moment was decades ago. It stood out so resoundingly clear that she knew what she wanted, and I'll tell you all about that story in a few minutes. You know those weeks where you're doing everything, you're checking the boxes, you feel like you're staying productive, and you're definitely running at full speed, but why does it feel like you're stuck or you're not actually moving forward? If you feel like you're doing everything but going nowhere, this episode is for you. It's your call to clarity and your roadmap to understand how to unlock your unstoppableness. Welcome to Weekly Momentum, the podcast that helps you do great work and still finish before 5. If you want to start your week with clarity, confidence, and a whole lot less chaos, you're in the right place. I'm the Get It Done Diva, and I'm here to help busy professionals just like you keep doing great work without having to play catch up every weekend, and then only to feel behind again by Tuesday. If you feel like you've got more things to do than seem to fit into the time you have, this show is your roadmap to change. And today we dig into the trap of endless busyness without direction. We talk about how your to-do list can become a distraction from your bigger vision, and why real progress only starts when you establish clarity and connect that weekly to-do list to something that really matters. We're going to explore how knowing what you want, which is harder than it seems, is the key to unlocking your unstoppable momentum. Today, we're focusing on finding your destination so that you can own your week before it owns you. Many high achievers sit down every day with a bottomless physical or a mental to-do list, but they know in their gut that they're just drowning in the busyness. If you're taking a ton of action every week and you still never feel like you're getting anywhere, it's often because you don't clearly know specifically and passionately, like my grandma Ada, what you want. If you don't feel like you're moving forward, then chances are you don't know what you want. Yes, you're getting stuff done. Maybe you're checking off tasks, desperate to find freedom or time from all of the actions, but it's like you're drowning. My grandma Ada was almost 6 foot tall. She was a powerhouse of a woman. And together with her husband, shortly after they were married, they built a house. Everybody pitched in and helped around the neighborhood. Because of that, they called the house Friendship. It was the perfect name. The milkman would come over and have a coffee at their table during his morning rounds, and when I visited as a little girl, there would be the window cleaner or the postman or a local farmer just sitting at the table with a cup of tea when I got up in the morning. Everybody was welcome. It truly was a house full of friendship. After my granddad passed away, my grandma moved into a flat close to my mom on the second floor of a small building in the village, and she continued to be very sociable. She'd go up and down the stairs several times daily, going off to visit with different people with no problem. And so in her early 80s, my grandma Ada built a new life, a second chapter that she really enjoyed. And then she broke her hip. As it was healing, she was not able to get around as much as before. And even though friends and family would visit her, she felt isolated. She felt trapped. She couldn't go up and down the stairs and go wherever she wanted to. And she didn't enjoy the feeling of being trapped. Her hip eventually did heal very nicely, but the seed of feeling trapped had been planted. She knew what she didn't want for herself. She knew that she didn't want to feel that way again. And so my grandma Ada started to figure out new options. She noticed a single-story bungalow just down the street, no stairs in the bungalow, and it had a cute little garden in the back. She mentioned the bungalows to my mom. My mom told her, "I think you're good where you are." It seemed like my grandma might be developing dementia just a little bit. My mom was worried that if my grandma moved, she wouldn't know where anything was, and that it would be hard on both of them. And even though my mom did appreciate it, that it would be better for her to live on a one-level home, she felt it would be easier not to move my grandma. But Grandma Ada stayed focused. She found out there was a bungalow available immediately. She even got an application form, filled it out all on her own. And a few days later, she picked up the phone and called Mom and said, "I want you to do something with me today. I want you to come and look at that bungalow with me." My mom told her, "Well, okay, but I really don't think it's a good idea." Later that day, they both went to the bungalow. And after they looked around, my grandma and my mom stood in the kitchen. And my grandma, she had the palm of her hand resting flat on the countertop. And she said, "Well, what do you think?" My mom repeated her concerns. "I don't know. In your flat, where everything is moving could be confusing. And where you are, people are watching over you. I'm just not sure it's a good idea." My grandma looked my mom dead in the eye. With her hand flat on the kitchen counter, she pounded down 3 times like a strong drum beat as she said emphatically, "I want it, I like it, and I'm going to have it." There was so much clarity and power, strength in Grandma Ada in that moment. My mom couldn't say no. And so my grandma got exactly what she wanted. By the next month, she'd moved into the bungalow with a little garden. It brought her so much joy. Yes, she got confused. And yes, she did have dementia, but she lived there happily for 2 years until she really couldn't be on her own anymore. Once we have that kind of clarity around what we want, whether we're 22 or 82 like my grandma Ada, we're unstoppable. We can do things that other people think we couldn't. With strong belief, we can want it, we can like it, and we can have it. When we know what we want, no matter what it is, when we click into that space of really knowing what we want, we are unstoppable. What does it mean to know what you want? It's a deep knowing, and that's what we're aiming to get clear on today. 90% of the time that I personally fall short or don't achieve my goals, it boils down to one thing. I simply don't know clearly, specifically, and passionately what I want. I may think I do, but when I stop to really examine why I'm falling short, it always comes down to the fact that I don't know what I want. That might sound crazy. How can I be running a business? How can I be living my life, operating as a human being on the planet? How can I be living and breathing without knowing what I want? It's because, like many people, a lot of the time, I'm running on autopilot. I'm taking action without really stopping to know why. When I'm unconsciously responding to people, places, and situations, I'm busy, but that doesn't mean I'm being productive. When our focus gets hijacked by other people's needs, our own projects can get buried at the bottom of the to-do list if they even make it on there. Often we worry about what people will think if we don't do what they want us to do. We're being accused of being selfish if we put our own needs or projects first. And the irony is that this belief is a complete contradiction. Think about the premise for a minute. We are being selfish if we don't do what someone else wants us to do. So it's okay for someone or even everyone else to be selfish, just not us. No one can win with this flawed premise in place. And on top of that, we often feel so busy and overwhelmed that the idea of taking the time and the energy to stop the runaway train we're on and figure out what we want feels counterintuitive. And even if we do figure out what we want, it's so easy to get caught up again in busyness and then completely forgot what we wanted, even if at one point we did know. Like when we open the fridge and can't remember what we were looking for, we lose the plot. For many years, I wasn't just on autopilot. I was literally unconscious of what I wanted. I had no clue. My alcohol addiction meant that I'd desensitized myself. I'd turned off my ability to be present in my life, and I spent a lot of time unconscious. My true desires were kidnapped by my addiction. Instead, I focused on when I would have the next drink and what I would drink. Now, don't get me wrong, I was a high functioning alcoholic. I showed up for my husband and my daughter. I got up and started work at 8 a.m. every day and held down my job. But every night I downed glass after glass of red wine until I polished off another 2-liter bottle, which was never enough. After I quit drinking, I began to defrost, to feel again. My senses came back and I had to figure out what I wanted, just like someone learning how to walk after a car accident. I was a blank slate. I noticed my desires as they popped up and got curious about what I wanted, not just food and drink. What do I want to do? What do I want to be? What do I want to listen to? As the noise of my addiction began to slowly quiet down, I suddenly saw all the choices life had to offer me. It was like a delicious buffet waiting patiently for me. My addiction had sucked up all the energy in my life for decades. Everything had revolved around red wine and the feeling of being buzzed. Now I had so many possibilities at my fingertips. I felt like a new sense of freedom. I could do things at nighttime when before, well, it was easier to stay home so I didn't have to worry about drinking and driving. I realized I created a prison for myself. Suddenly I was asking myself one question again and again. What do I want? And I started to realize I didn't have a clue. I began tuning into the question more and more. What do I want for breakfast? What do I want to watch on TV? What do I want to wear? I was infatuated by the question, what do I want? And I realized it's constantly changing and evolving. What felt satisfying last week is not necessarily going to be the same as what feels satisfying to me today. We are beautiful, evolving, growing human beings. Figuring out what we want, that's how we grow. It's how we become great. Could you get better at answering the question, what do I want? As you do, you might also notice the contrast of things that you don't want, the things that turn you off, not on, the things that don't feel good. This information is not bad, it's gold. And yes, that is all it is, information. When you experience something you don't want, instead of getting caught up in the emotion of what went wrong, how you got the wrong delivery or clothes that don't fit or traffic on your commute, choose to see it as information, data. As you collect data of what you want and what you don't want, you fine-tune your palette. Could you get better at answering the question, what do I want? When you do, it's going to make you unstoppable. As you get clearer on what you want, bam, you'll notice things just start showing up. Don't take my word for it. Experiment with it on your own this week. Food's a great place to begin. The next time someone asks you what you want for dinner, notice if you're clear or confused. When everybody's sitting there on the couch, stretching their heads, wondering what to eat, notice how quickly food just shows up when just one person gets clear and asks for what they want. And pay attention to how satisfied you are with the food that you eat, depending on whether or not you're the one that chose it and knew what you wanted. When you know what you want, food tastes better. It's time to fall in love with yourself, to be in a state of fascination with yourself, date yourself, and become curious about everything. When we first start dating someone else, we want to get to know them. We want to know their favorite color, what they like to eat, and what music they like. We want to know everything about them. What if you invest in yourself like you were dating yourself? And just like in a great relationship, the dating phase should never end, because the question, what do I want, is never fully answered. Not knowing what you want, it's not unusual. It's actually how most people spend a lot of their time. I mean, look around if you don't believe me. Notice how the words and actions of people often don't line up. If you're foggy and unclear about what you want to eat, where to go at the weekend, or what time to go to bed, then can you imagine how deep the roots of confusion might be when it comes to some of the bigger, more important choices you have in your life and career? In fact, the question, what do I want, is at the core of every single choice you have and will ever make in your life. And as you lean more into what you want, you'll also begin to see how ridiculously sexy clarity is. When we're crystal clear on what we want, whether it's what restaurant we want to go to or who we want to spend the rest of our lives with, things seem to quickly and effortlessly fall into place. Look around you. Notice where there's clarity and certainty and how that draws you in and moves you almost effortlessly forward into action. That's you in that zone of greatness. Think of it like a muscle that you might not have used in a while. Don't worry, it's simple and powerful to reactivate it. I've done it. All you have to do is ask, what do I want? Ask it a lot, ask it all the time, ask it about everything. And whatever you do, don't stop. Are you ready to approach life with fresh eyes? You have so much greatness to give to the world. To unlock it, just get used to asking, checking in, and truly knowing what you want. Listen for what you want and notice your emotional reaction to it. That's your built-in guidance system. You can use it at any time you want to lead you into momentum. You don't need to begin by looking for the meaning of life. Begin with whatever is in front of you. A sense of purpose isn't necessarily about knowing why you're on the planet. It doesn't have to be that profound. Often, your purpose right now might simply be to understand why you're in the room and what you can contribute to the people around you in the next 5 minutes. How do you do that? You might be having a conversation with someone, working with a client, watching a TV show, or eating dinner. Just keep asking, what do I want? The clearer you get, the more will show up for you, not only for yourself and in your work, but with your friends and your family too. I used to love the crime TV show, CSI. I'd watch every single one of the CSIs, Miami, Vegas, all of them. And then one night I sat down on my couch with my husband. We got halfway through an episode and I turned to him and I said, I think I'm done with this now. I just knew it. I felt it in my body. At that moment, I didn't want to watch any more people being murdered. That was it. I completely shifted at that moment. It wasn't just CSI. From that moment on, I had no desire to watch violent movies or TV shows. When something came on, I either changed the channel or left the room. You can do that with anything in your life. You can change your mind. You can change your mind about what you want. You can change the channel and you can leave the room. After working with hundreds of amazing, busy professionals, I began to realize it wasn't just me. I find that the number one reason my clients are not able to achieve their goals is because they don't know what they want, but they think that they do. So let's explore the difference. I have goals, Marianne. What are you talking about? You may be thinking. That's what many of my clients say when I start asking them, what do you want? Yeah, I know it may feel crazy, but stay with me here. Trust me. We can be smart, we can be professional, we can type up a polished plan and think we have goals. But what's really holding us back is that we don't know what we want. Even when we set goals, we often don't update them. We raise the bar, change the rules on ourselves, and move the finish line again and again. Have you ever pushed yourself to focus on too many things at once and then just ended up creating more stress, confusion, and anxiety for yourself? I'm sure you haven't, right? Even when we have set a clear goal, we often end up with so many goals that we don't really know which goal is most important. We have no goals. Confusion opens the door for doubt, overwhelm, burnout, and procrastination. And this leads to rushing, pushing, busyness, and burning out. We may think we know what we want, but the litmus test is if we don't feel like we're moving forward, then we don't know what we want. The problem is not that we're lazy, not in the slightest. We don't need to push ourselves harder. We just don't know what we truly want. Knowing what you want is not as cut and dry as it may seem. The tricky thing about defining and knowing what you want is that there's just so many layers to it. It's like an onion. We may feel confident that we know what we want. Maybe it's to write a best-selling book or lose 20 pounds or launch a new business. But the next layer is why? Why do we want it? We need to buy into the why behind the what. When we're invested in our goals and projects and dreams, we believe in them. That's not a fantasized belief that only shows up when we're all pumped up. This is a belief that lasts, that sticks around even when our enthusiasm has run out. It's a deep knowing that makes action a no brainer. When we know what we want and the why behind it, we have a strong faith, a determination like my grandma Ada. Think of it like the game Marco Polo. Marco Polo, in case you don't know, is a game that kids play in the swimming pool. One person closes their eyes, they're the seeker, and the objective of the game is for them to tag the other players without opening their eyes. The seeker yells Marco again and again, and the other players must reply Polo each time. Using the sound of their voices, the seeker then must find and tag them. What do I want? It's like yelling Marco to find yourself. The game's going to be boring if the players stayed in the same place. And so, just like them, you're constantly on the move. It keeps things more interesting, trust me. I challenge you to demand to know what you want at every moment. Every moment. To settle for anything less is just that, to settle. Let that sink in. Knowing what you want every day, every week, ensures you don't get lost in distraction or slowed down by confusion of not knowing what you want at any time. Don't worry, you're going to get better and better at answering the question and asking, what do you want? So be patient with yourself. The answers to this simple yet deep question may not be obvious right away. Often our heads are so full of requests and demands and busyness and our own goals, ideas, and what we want's buried deep down. But it's there. I promise you, if you keep digging with the question, what do I want? I want to be clear. This isn't just simply about figuring out what you want right now and forcing yourself to achieve it. When we try to push ourselves into action, it may work well at the beginning, but after a few months, weeks, or even days, what we wanted when we began may not be the same as what we want right now. That's when we may find ourselves procrastinating, starting to feel bored or uninspired. Does that sound familiar to you? This is a sign that we've lost our hunger or a desire for what we want. We're always in a constant state of growth, weekly, daily, and even from minute to minute, depending on our mood, our circumstances, or even our environment. We want different things. So the answer to the question, what do you want? It's fluid. It's going to change again and again. And guess what? That means all those times that you got inspired and created a big grand plan and then later got frustrated at yourself for not following the plan, it wasn't your fault. It's just what your big grand plan didn't account for is that you're an amazing, evolving, high achieving being, ever changing and growing. It's an ongoing love affair with yourself and how great you really are. The book that I wrote, Daily Momentum, is focused on helping you on a granular level get clear on what you want. So if you haven't picked up a copy of my book, it's available on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle. And you can start to use the ideas in that book along with my 30-day planner to begin to get clearer and clearer on what you want, what felt satisfying each day, and begin to fan the flames of your unstoppable nature. If you find yourself just caught up in the busyness, what I like to call the spin cycle, constantly feeling pressure to take action, do, and wasting so much energy burning yourself out. The key, as I've said before, is consistency. Remember my tagline, greatness is a habit, not a hustle. And the weekly momentum flow that we do in this podcast each week is designed to create that reset moment for you. Let's take a moment to move through the weekly flow. Step 1, rewind. That's where we celebrate wins, note what worked, what didn't, and why. And we upgrade your operating system with the do-over question. As you reflect on the energy that you invested in last week, did you know what you wanted? Did you say it clearly? Because if you didn't do what you said, it may very well be because you didn't know what you wanted. Sometimes we're so hard on ourselves, but it's just because we were never clear on exactly what we were doing in the first place. No wonder we never achieved the results or the destination or hit the target that we set for ourselves. Check in with yourself. Did you know what you wanted last week? And when you're doing the rewind and asking yourself the rewind questions, is the perfect time for you to ask that question. I want you to use the rewind questions that are in the weekly planning pages. If you don't have them already, you can download them on the website at getitdonediva.com for free. And after you've asked yourself those questions, check in with yourself as you're rewinding. Because if you're not getting the results that you want, you probably don't have that clarity that my grandma Ada had. You probably were making a wish list or a never-ending to-do list, not really making a weekly top 10 and a weekly goal that is focused and connected to what you want. You want to get curious about what feels good, what satisfies you, so that you can clearly identify what you want more of. This clues you in, so it helps you get clear on your preferences and what you want for the future. You can learn so much from the past week and the last 90 days to help you carve out those new neural pathways, all by asking the do-over question and looking at what would you choose to do differently last week? How could you have been clearer? What path could you have taken that was more along the lines of what you want? So really take an opportunity as you're rewinding this week to notice if your results are not what you would like them to be in the last 7 days. Maybe it's because you didn't know what you wanted. Now let's look at step 2, realign. This is where we reconnect to what we want. Remind ourselves of our annual and our 90-day goals. We want to use 90-day planning to bridge the gap between the big picture vision and your weekly activities. The realign step of the weekly momentum flow is what allows you to create the consistency and to manage your progress towards the bigger goals instead of spinning in circles. You want to be growing, you want to create forward motion, and you want to be moving towards your 90-day goal with your weekly plan. So I want you to take a moment in this step 2, realign, and ask yourself, what do you want for the next 90 days? Do you have a 90-day plan? Do you know what you want? Do you have bigger goals that have that clarity, that commitment that we've been talking about in this episode? As we realign this week, I want you to really make a note and notice if you have that. The members of the Momentum Squad and I, every single 90 days, we create a 90-day plan. We then use that as a roadmap each week so that we're creating small steps towards the bigger vision of where we're heading. I go through a process with the ladies to help them to make sure that they're setting 90-day goals that really connect with where they're going even beyond the next 90 days. It's almost like beads on a necklace as you're looking at your vision and getting clearer and clearer on what you want. Now, if you're overwhelmed by the idea and have no idea of what you want, in step 2 of realign of the weekly momentum flow this week, maybe just look as far ahead as you can to align. Maybe it's 90 days. Maybe it's 30 days. I want you to look a little further ahead than a week, though, because if all you do each week is figure out what you want each week, then you move in one direction and you're unstoppable. You are checking things off the list, but then the next week you move in a different direction. Check things off the list. And that's tricky because even though you feel like you're being really productive, you may be going to the right, then going to the left, then going backwards and going in circles. This is how we spin and feel like we're doing a lot and we're really busy, but we're getting nowhere. Now, the other thing that might be happening with you is you might be feeling like you don't know what you want and you're just blocked, kind of like I was after I quit drinking. I have no clue what I wanted. I had no sense of my preferences. Maybe the whole idea of figuring out what you want is overwhelming. Just start small. Maybe your 90-day goal is to keep asking yourself what you want on a granular micro scale and then build the muscle so that you get clearer on what you want from anything as simple as what's your favorite drink, your favorite ice cream, what do you want to eat for dinner? Make it your mission for you to ask yourself, ask your body what your preferences are. Step 3 of the weekly momentum flow is plan. And this is where you formally say, this is what I want. So you can see how it's very difficult to do that if you haven't gotten that clarity around knowing what you want. It's hard to say what you want if you don't know what you want. And you might have been butting your head against that for a little while. So this week, as you are in step 3 of the weekly momentum flow, I want you to make really clear agreements with yourself. Really check in with that weekly goal and the items on your weekly top 10. Making that list and focusing on what do you want? What will create progress towards the bigger goals? How can you make everything flow and create the clarity that you need to be unstoppable this week, while at the same time seeing yourself making progress? Remember that if you're aiming for true momentum, you've got to move the important stuff to the top of a shorter list and make it a priority. Step 4, plug in. This is where you get your head in the game and you update your calendar to reflect what matters most this week so that you can do what you say. Let's talk a little bit as we're looking at your calendar about boundaries. Boundaries around your time. Many of my members and my clients struggle because there's so many demands on their time by other people. And it's difficult to know what to say yes to and what to say no. Usually it's not black and white. It's not an easy decision. There's gray areas. When you know what you want to the degree that we're talking about today, and I hope that you're getting a better understanding of what that means. Knowing what you want is not just writing down a goal. It is that goal clicking into place and being something that sparks a determination in you. And when you set your weekly goals and you have your 90-day plans, it's a lot harder for someone to violate your boundaries because you're able to monitor them better. You're clearer on what there is to lose if you say yes to something. Because when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. And a lot of times, the things you're saying no to are the things that would move you forward. And that's why you feel like you're not making any progress this week. When you're putting things on the calendar, remind yourself why you're doing the things you're doing and how it fits in with your bigger goals, and be really clear on what you want. What do you want your week to look like? What time do you want to get to work? What time do you want to take lunch? What do you want to eat for lunch? How do you want to spend your lunch hour? As you're getting your head in the game and visualizing the week, you can begin to really activate your imagination and fire up your unstoppableness even more, moving towards what you want. This creates the space so that you can be working on your future, not just treading water in the now. You can get ahead of all the busyness by proactively blocking off the time right now for those things that you want. When you claim that space, you stop drowning and you start swimming in momentum. If you really want to get stuff done, then you've got to operate with an unshakable clarity. You have to know what you want. As my grandma Ada famously said, I like it, I want it, and I'm going to have it. So as you show up and you ask yourself each week in weekly momentum, make it a habit of getting curious about what you want and give yourself permission to change your mind. It's critical to continue to ask yourself what you want in every moment to unlock your greatness. Now, don't forget, you can grab those weekly planning pages for busy professionals for free on the website if you want to plan your week with me and learn all the details of the weekly momentum flow. It has the exact worksheets I use with the Momentum Squad in the inner circle, and you can find the link on the homepage at getitdonediva.com. Momentum is energy with direction. It's driven by knowing what you want. It's time to reclaim your clarity by connecting those weekly to-dos with that 90-day plan. And this structure gives you the off-ramp from the grind and the hustle. If you only focus on checking off tasks each week, desperate to get to the end of the list, it's like drowning and deciding to keep treading water, and doing with no destination eventually wears you out. Clarity is the magical ingredient that can jumpstart your desire and turn it into momentum. Once we have clarity about what we want, we are unstoppable. You're not here to hustle harder. You're here to unlock the momentum code. Know what you want, say what you want, do what you say. You can do great work and still finish before 5. Keep your evenings free for family, rest, or doing absolutely nothing. And spend more time working on your future, not just drowning in the now. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week in Weekly Momentum.